Justin is a really awesome bodybuilder. I don't think I could take him in arm wrestling, but I could probably win him in a thumb war or possibly a game. You don't think so? I think
maybe you have a chance. You have a chance
because I've got, even without the little nail there, I've got some strong hands. But my muscles are puny, and they're small. I have a feeling that if I could, like if I was built like you, I wouldn't be competing in the Mrs. Maryland International pageant. Probably not.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think you do too well. You can still compete in it, but you might not do that great.
Probably not. So,
yeah.
So I'm going to ask you questions, because I've actually not met you face to face. This is the closest we've ever come to meeting each other outside of a message. So I'm going to share a little bit about Justin to people who are reading that, or I'm saying reading because I'm so used to typing that everything is read and nothing is said. So Justin and I share a mutual coach. Probably if Lane Norton's had any impact on Justin like me, he's also a mentor and a friend. So we share a mutual friend, mentor, coach. We are part of this little subculture on the internet called Team Norton. Bodybuilders, natural bodybuilders, powerlifters, athletes from around the world have one thing in common, I think, and that is this love for being stronger, faster, fitter, naturally, and occasionally with some unnatural chemicals that we can consume without thinking that we're lesser people than those who eat non-chemical whatever. So my interactions with Justin before I hit the hardest part of my life were probably just in a big group forum about bodybuilding, food, counting fats, carbohydrates, and proteins, that sort of thing. But as I got to get close to a lot of those people, it was during a time that my son was extremely self-destructive. I was angry and sad. There was a lot of substance abuse, just tons of substance abuse, really. And I started to become a little bit more open in this very closed group. And Justin was one of the very first people to share with me some things he'd gone through and turning his life around. So I chose Justin as my first person to interview because Justin, to me, represents a lot of what people don't talk about. And it's these mental health crises that people think strong people don't have them. This is a woman's thing. Men don't do it. Justin is someone's son, someone's brother. I've watched him be an uncle. You got to watch him reading stories to your children here with Uncle Justin. So, but a good guy who's turned his life around. I didn't know Justin before everything, so I asked Justin if he'd mind me interviewing. So, Justin, before going into that, I got to ask you some other questions. All right? So, it's sort of like I mentioned that I could marry you off to one of my kids, but I don't know anything about you other than, you're strong. And once you did stupid things, and then you do less stupid things. So if you had a superpower, what would your superpower be?
Oh, that's a really good one. I think it would be either to stop time or to see into the future.
Cool. What would your superhero name be?
What would my superhero name be? I think I would just keep it my own. My last name is pretty uniquely spelled. It's Riley, but spelled different. I never even thought of a superhero name. I wasn't prepared for that question. Every other question but that one. I would let the public decide what my superhero's name is based on my activity.
A diplomatic controller of time. That's pretty nice of you. It almost sounds American. You could vote.
We could.
So, what is one thing you've done that you think everybody should do, and one thing you've never done that you really want to do?
I think one thing that I've done that everyone should done is to fail, and fail lots, and fail hard. I don't think you learn as much from winning all the time or doing the right thing. And that was kind of like childhood, you're just doing the right thing, doing what your parents tell you. And then you go off on your own and you fail. And whether it's failing for a week or a year or a decade, just pull yourself out of that and learn from it. So I think that's my answer to that. What was the second question?
What is something you've never done that you really want to do?
Something that I've never done that I really want to do? I guess that could be a lot of things, but I want to hit up every continent on the world. The more you live, the more you travel, the more you realize you should travel more. And I never really traveled lots until like the last 5-10 years. So I think seeing more cultures, seeing more people. We're really isolated here in North America, and it's really different going to other places. So I would like to see everything, all the wonders of the world, old and new. So pretty big.
That's awesome. I want to do that too. I've been raising children for 22 years, so I think that's going to be on my when all the kids are out of the house list.
Yeah.
My last before I go into wanting, hopefully you can share as much of your story as you're comfortable with, and I think it's going to be a blessing to people. But if you could go to the Justin Rille, if you say you see someone and you see this young man and you're like, wow, that reminds me a lot of myself when I was, in that other place in my life. You see him, what do you want to tell him?
What would I tell Justin Rille of the young? Oh, I don't know. There's so many things that you could tell or say or whatever, but you still need to experience things on your own to develop the character. But I really think like one of the things I would say is, Justin, like, don't drink alcohol for that long. I think that would be one of the only things to say. And then other than slow down and just enjoy every moment, because we're so used to, or I like to dream. I'm always living in the future. But, the older you get, the more you look back and be like, oh man, I wish I remembered more or did more or just enjoyed it more. So don't drink, Justin. That's what I would say.
That was a good question to me that I often think about. I think a lot of us who've struggled, whether it's by our choices or things that happen to us, we can go back and look where we were and the things we've learned now based on that. I guess the wisdom often comes from bad choices or difficult experiences in life. So you're right on. Can you tell me a little bit about, I briefly just glossed over some self-destructive behavior. I mean, when I would read the things you would share, I could see a lot of my son in you, and that's probably what endeared me to you in this mom way, I guess. But what do you think brought you to that place that you were at, first of all? And how could you describe how you were at that time?
So like when I was kind of falling into those bad habits, is that what you're
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll go with a strict religious background. I think when you live that way for 2 decades and then you go explore on your own, you're really restricted from a lot, and everything's tempting to you. Everything is new. So when you're on your own and you're doing all these things, kind of the further you stray, the more acceptance you get from that crowd, right? So if you go to people who drink a lot, if you drink a lot, you're accepted by them. But if you don't drink a lot and hang out with them, you're not accepted. So I think that's kind of the same in every way, whether it's drugs, alcohol, or other addictions or this and that. So I think one of the things was everything was so new and enticing. And I think being young, being a doorman at the bar in a new city is a great way to make friends. And being in shape, I think those 3 things are a good combination of meeting a lot of people and having a lot of influence on what you do and stuff like that. So I just think that, don't get me wrong, like, I think a strict background is good, right? I love you, Mom. But if too restricted, it's just like dieting. If you're too restricted, you're going to binge harder after. So I think growing up, when you're too restricted, you don't experience everything. Then when you're on your own, you experience everything. So I think that would be the starting point or the catalyst of it. And then just being in a different city with no friends or no support or whatever, you'll do more things than you normally would outside of your comfort zone.
When you hit, even before your lowest parts, where this became not just something you did, but something that was becoming part of maybe what people could see you as becoming. Do you remember people that love you, your parents, your sister, people in your life that wanted to intervene, talk to you? How did they respond to you? Or did you compartmentalize that in such a way that maybe you protected or shielded them from that part of your life?
Oh, for sure. I didn't really express that part of life, but I'm having a hard time narrowing down one lowest point. There were many.
You can mention any of them that stick out to you.
Yeah. I think like one of the biggest things is when we kind of go through things is we're so encased in our feelings at the time that we don't think there's another way, or we don't think there's a way out, or we don't think anyone understands. And I think that's normal when we're in that situation. Right now, look at the mess I was. But then at the time, I thought I was doing the best things ever. I'm the coolest guy in the world. Everybody loves me. And you're in that world and you don't get to experience things or emotions outside of it. And one thing is I haven't really told my mom a lot about things, but I tell my sister everything if it's brought up, right? So my sister kind of always knew a little bit of stuff. As we got older, I shared more. It was easier to share when I was not doing those things. But at my lowest point, I'd say it was probably like 3 or 4 months where I was ignoring my family and their phone calls and this and that. And because I'd see that they would call and I'd look at the phone and it would just be like disappointment would fall over me. And I just like, I don't want to answer this because, they're going to ask how I'm doing and I'm doing very poorly and I don't have any money and I can't pay my bills and I don't want to tell them the bad news. So I didn't answer my phone or their texts or anything for months. And my sister and my stepdad, they live 2 hours away. And just one day in December, they showed up at my house, wow. right on in. And it was great. It was probably it was really good now. But when I saw them, like there was so much shame and I felt so bad and everything like that. And so what my sister did is she stayed at the house, and I don't think I've opened any mail in like 6 months or longer. Like there's just stacks of it. So she, opened all that stuff, got all the important bills, and then my dad drove me around, and we went place to place, and he paid all my bills, right? And I'm sitting in the vehicle, and I'm like, I feel useless. Like I feel horrible. Like I'm whatever I was. When was that? Maybe 2009-ish. And I was just like, I'm just sitting around being like, I feel worthless. Like this shouldn't be happening. But at the same time, like you really need to hit that deepest point, right? To understand where you are. We always need some sort of reference point or guide. And if we don't realize how low we are, we're going to keep going. So my dad drove me around and he paid like my insurance and some stuff with the house and bills and all that fun stuff. And then my sister did all the mail and organized a whole bunch of stuff. And one of the things she said to me is like, no matter what happens in life, you understand that we love you, right? And I'm just like, yeah. But that doesn't really hit home until you have some quiet time to think about it. Is like no matter what, there's people out there who do love you and do care for you. But sometimes we're in situations where we'll never see that at the time. And that's where I was. And probably there for my lowest point, I told my sister that I'll try to communicate better, because she told me how hurt she was when she would call and there would be no answer. Sure, I make Facebook updates, I get tagged in pictures and that, but there's no communication there. So I definitely did think I pushed the family away a bit, and my family is really good to me. They're great. And I pushed away the most important people because I felt a lot of shame. So yeah, that was tough. That was really tough to climb out of.
When, as you talk about that, I can remember my own son saying, when just before he actually made what became quite close to ending his life, he came to us weeks before telling us he felt hopeless, worthless, he felt like a loser, were his words. And I could hear that echoed back, with what you're sharing with me. And I think for young men, I know that young ladies and older ladies, a lot of people can feel hard, but the more I'm learning and immersing myself in dealing with various mental health crises. It doesn't always have to be an actual depression or an actual addiction, but when you're caught in the depth of despair, it can suffocate you. And a lot of young men, it's hard to reach out and say, I might need help. So just imagining how much your stepdad would mean to you as a man who was once a young man, to know that had to be hard for you. It's like that expression of unconditional love is it's a beautiful thing. And I think that's a stigma thing that we don't say, I feel worthless, I feel like I'm no good, and that sort of thing. So I think you can give a lot of people hope and seeing, like, look where he is now. You own your own business, you coach, you train, you don't have to wait months or weeks to check your mail, and
I
still freak out. I've been there, and I still have a hard time when I see an unrecognizable phone number. It brings back like that feeling of, oh, it's a collector. What do they want from me now?
Exactly. Still, once in a blue moon, I'll check like the front door for an envelope stuck right in there for the really ones. So yeah. No, that's on my mind. But I do want to touch on like some of the things that you said there. So when my sister was here, she was just telling me how much I mean to her and all this and that. And when you're down in the dumps, that's really great to hear. Down in the dumps is actually putting it lightly. But when you're in that position, like in pretty much the lowest spot of your life, we never really talked about it. But my sister said, she just mentioned suicide, like she knew that things were really bad. So I was doing community service. My electricity and water were shut off to my house. But of course, we can always pay our cell phone bills. I had no food, but yet I'm a bodybuilder, and it was horrible. And I was actually, the people at when I was doing community service at the Salvation Army at the soup kitchen, and this one lady kind of dug into me a little bit, and she realized that I didn't have any food or anything. And then so she would let me take food from the Salvation Army. So I would take like a loaf of bread and a couple of cans of soup and live off that for a couple of days. And it was really tough being around all that food and giving it away to the people who really need it. And yet I was one of those at the time, and that was really tough. And my sister said to me, she's like, don't you ever dare commit suicide, because what am I supposed to do? She's like, that would be so selfish of you to take yourself away from me without me getting a choice. And when she put it like that, as in, you can't take yourself away from me in that sense, that really hit home for me. And after that, every time, no matter how low I got, I never got that low again, but I would just think of my sister. I'd be like, okay, I can't be selfish. My sister would do anything for me. I can't take that away from her. I can't take myself away from her kids, like my niece and nephews. Like, that would just be too selfish. And that really struck home for me. It was just that one little line, that one little talk we had about it. And no matter how down I got, I just realized there's other people that I will affect, or my actions affect others. So once you realize that, you can be in your own bubble and you think you're not hurting anyone else, but not talking to your mom, not talking to your dad. Like, my mom won't tell me how much sleep she's lost, but she lost a lot of sleep, right? My sister will never tell me how many times she got so mad at me or how many times I never answered her call. But when we're doing all our things and we think we're not hurting anyone, that's probably when we're hurting a lot of people. So when she put that into perspective, that what I do affects others, it was a little bit easier to pull out of the holes or out of the slumps I got, because I realized I do have a support network. And you're right about males, is we don't really ask for help. If we get lost, we're not going to ask for directions. If we're building IKEA furniture, we're not going to look at the instructions until we absolutely have to. And it's almost the same with needing help. The hardest thing to do is ask people for help. And when I said, yes, I do need food to the lady at the soup kitchen, I sat in this $500 piece of crap car that I had, and I sat there with a loaf of bread and a couple cans, and I just cried. Like, I couldn't drive. I pulled over, and I just cried because I was like, I have food because somebody cares. So as hard as it is, and it's easy for us to say now, yeah, ask for help. Yeah, do that. But you really have to, like, sometimes that's the only way to get out of the hole is to reach your hand up and ask for someone to grab you. And we don't see it, but there's a lot of people outside ready to grab the hand. So that's tough.
I can't tell you what a blessing it is to hear a son sharing what it's like to be on the other side. Because I've been on the side of your mother, and a lot of us family members, sometimes we don't talk either. You know, we know our loved ones are struggling, but it's not because we're ashamed as much as it is usually, I think. Those of us who think we're genuine, it's not a matter of shame, it's more a matter of we don't want others to look at our child or our spouse, whatever that is, in a way and them see the things they're doing. We want them to see what we see. You know, if I see someone seeing my son or my daughter, I want them to see how funny they are, how smart they are, how creative they are. You know, I want someone to ask Josh if he's played his guitar song soon, not how many months it's been since he's been drinking or smoking, you know, those sort of things. So there's this desire to protect your loved ones, but then that starts this new cycle of codependency and depression. And for me, I ended up getting major depression for the first time in my life, and I had been through a divorce. I'd had 5 children and uprooted many times as a wife. It's a beautiful thing to hear a son looking back and saying, I know this affected my mom, I know this affected my sister, because, you know, as I get the blessing of sharing this video, there's going to be someone's son and someone's daughter who might be hearing for the first time you saying, you know, I look back and it's when I pulled away when I hurt them the most. And my son did the same thing. It's amazing because I always love watching your videos that you share. One of my daughters and I was talking about this video, and we were sharing with each other. I was sharing her. It was a story time with your nephew, and you made a very innocent book, very naughty, but it was hilarious. He didn't know, so no harm done. But you could see the love you have. It's great. And, you know, you now get to leave a legacy for your niece and nephew's children. And Lord willing, you become a dad one day if you so choose. But we are trying to marry you off to an American. Can I give you this?
Yeah, I'll that later. I still got to respond to those messages.
Yeah, to everyone watching, I have, I think a few times offered to adopt Justin, but I was born in 74. When were you born? 80-something?
80.
So I could be more like your big sister, but I don't think you could adopt siblings. You could just, we'll work this out. We'll figure it out. So you did share a lot. You got this blessing of your stepdad and your sister seeing firsthand as much as you could let them see where you were struggling. What was the turning point to make you make that shift in life? You were drinking, this is going to destroy your life, and now it's time to make a new path. What was that, more of a process, or was it a decision overnight? Was it an incident? What was it that made the change for you?
Yeah, no, good question. So I'm obviously hanging out with the wrong crowd and the wrong people and doing all the wrong things, right? But I'm in heaven. It's the best, the most acceptance ever. So, so I was a frequent fighter when I drink, and I enjoy the old bar brawl. And then the more you fight, the more it happens, and the more other people want to fight you, and just the worse things get. So I had this really big meetup with this guy, and we fought in the parking lot, and I ended up tearing my ACL during that fight, and I couldn't stand on my leg or walk. So I went to the hospital, and I got misdiagnosed, and I went home, and my leg was all swelling and everything like that. And I'm at home for a couple of weeks and trying to get stuff done with the doctors or whatever. And then, like, after 3-4 weeks, because I can't really walk, I'm just laying in bed. I'm not getting any visitors anymore. No one's hanging out with me or whatever. Like, everyone's at the bar and I'm at home. I'm like, where's my friends? You know, I would, you know, I'm making money. I have a job and stuff like that, right? So it's like, okay, like, can somebody get me groceries? Can somebody that, like, and no one's around. Yeah. And so it was okay. Then I got my brace and I got this and that and I got things figured out and I was able to go out and walk with a cane and all that fun stuff. And then I had surgery, and surgery really put me out for a bit. There was a lot of complications. I had to get 3 surgeries in 9 months on it. So basically I was laid up for a really long time. And that's when no one was showing up. And I'm laying in bed for all the time. And I'm just thinking to myself, no one's here, no one's around, like everyone's out, everyone's gone. And when you're home alone, days, by yourself, you realize you get to reflect on your life and where you are, and you kind of get to look at it from an outside perspective, right? Finally, you get a different view. Because I'm not drinking and because I'm not with my friends, I'm at home, I have a different view now. I can see everything outside of that circle. So I was like, okay, well, how old was I? So yeah, I was like 30 or something like that, or 29, and I'm like, I've still got my house, barely, I don't know how, so I still got my mortgage, I've got nothing else. What am I doing with my life? Like, this is horrible. I need to pull myself together. So I kind of made a decision to cut all ties, and that was easy. That decision was easy to make. So I basically said to some of my close bar friends, I'm like, hey, listen, I'm kind of done. I'm out. I don't want anything like this. So anytime I would go out, they would make things really difficult for me.
Wow.
As in, I'd end up fighting, like they would fight me, right? So because I was hanging out with the wrong people and there were some shady activities maybe involved. So when you aren't doing those activities anymore, they really want to make your life tough, right? So for like a year and a half, possibly 2 years, I'd have to look behind my back everywhere I went because I would get suckered, I would get jumped, I would get all this and that. And it's really tough to leave a certain group or a certain type of people. And they made my life very difficult to the point where it was better to stay at home. There was many times when I'd be out and enjoying my night and people could tell things were going to get heated and I'd end up in the hospital with some stitches and so would they, and they're hospital, I'd be at the hospital. It was just a horrible situation. This kept happening. So the only way for it not to happen was to not go out anymore. So I stopped going out anymore, and it was probably mentally tough 2-3 years because you don't have as many people and you don't have as much support. Don't get me wrong, I had a lot of support, but when you go from having the whole town, the whole bar industry, and that's all your whole life, and then back to being nothing, you don't really have as many people around. So it took probably about 2 to 3 years of just fighting through it and getting past it and just letting the past dissolve, because time kind of heals all, and just not going out because it was the safest thing to do. And then about 3 years after that, a few people moved away and this and that, and things changed and people kind of care less. And by then I just didn't care for going out anymore. I would just go for dinner with a few people. So I was never by myself. And then I would just go home at 7, 8, 9 at night. And now maybe once every 2-3 months I go out until midnight or 1, but that's about it. So once I was kind of done all that point, like I'd still go out, like when I kind of left my friends or whatever, I'd still go out and drink. And that's where a lot of fighting would happen because I love fighting when I drink. So I realized I had to take that out. And for me, the last 2 times I drank in my town, I got arrested by the cops, and I actually fought the cops, and that's really bad, expensive and stuff like that. So not only does alcohol cost a lot of money, but so do lawyers and all your court stuff like that. So 2 nights of drinking cost me, I think, $7,000. My last 2 nights of drinking in Grand Prairie cost me that. So for me to say, okay, I'm done drinking, was the easiest decision in the world because 1, I hardly had any, real friends anymore. I still got a close circle. And then 2, it was just costing me so much with all the extra lawyer fees and everything like that for all the charges and stuff like that. So, and then the other thing too was I would black out. And the older you get, the more you realize your responsibilities. And me drinking affected a lot of people that it shouldn't have. So let's say, you know, the classic, you bump shoulders in a bar, and if one person loves to fight and the other person's a nobody, then it's a win for the fighter. That's what they love. So here I am bumping shoulders and I would get mad. You know, the classic guy in the bar, oh, you want to go? But it's just like, so you had to realize that I'm affecting others. I'm spending way too much money and this is going nowhere. I have no direction with my life. So when it was time to make the decision to quit, I said, I'll have my last drink at my buddy's wedding. And I didn't even get drunk at my buddy's wedding. I just had a couple of drinks and I was just ready. I couldn't wait for the date so that I could be done drinking. And I've never looked back. And my true close friends are the ones who support that. Because when I'm in a group of friends and somebody's like, here, have a drink, I'll be like, no thanks, I don't drink. And they're like, oh, come on, just have one. And then a friend or two will step in and be like, no, man, he doesn't drink. And just to have that support is really great. Yeah, and then I can go on to addiction now that I'm out of it, or unless you have some other questions, we'll tie into it. I don't know.
I would love to hear about that very much.
So the thing is, like, usually when you're in something, you don't see the whole picture. So I never thought of myself as an alcoholic, but I would get blackout drunk 3 to 5 times a week.
Really?
Okay?
Wow.
And I would probably drink 5 times a week anyways. And sometimes I would just wake up, run to the front window, and I'd be like, oh, my truck is home. How did that happen? Like, it was getting scary. So when I quit drinking, then a couple months down the road, I realized how big of a problem it was. Because for a decade, I drank like 5 nights a week pretty much. And you don't realize how you're dependent on it. So once I stopped drinking, I realized how much I actually drank, and then you realize how much better you feel every morning. And then you look back, and if you would have asked me when I was drinking, I could have said I could have stopped every time. Like, I could stop any time. And I do believe that. I probably could. I have really good willpower, but there was no reason to. But now that I'm out of it, I realized that maybe I probably couldn't. Like, I was pretty encased in that. And looking back, I say, yeah, I was addicted to alcohol. Like, I was an alcoholic. But you asked me then, I would have said, no, I'm not an alcoholic. That's horrible. Like, that's a horrible word. That's a condition. No. Yeah. So it was really neat once I quit drinking. I still went out a few times and stuff like that, but never drank and just watched everything. And then you realize a lot of things happen after things are done. That's kind of where we learn our lessons. So looking back, I'd be like, I was massively addicted.
Yeah.
But once again, you ask me then, not a chance. I would say no. So it was really neat to look at the realizations. The longer I go without drinking, the more realizations I had and how dependent I was on it. Mm-hmm. So,
as once you started reestablishing just a new way of being, and the friends or more like acquaintances that you enjoyed having a lot of fun with, and that's gone, how did you end up reinvesting your time into people? Or have you found more peace at just being on your own? Because it seems like you would have to find a new way of enjoying that social side of you. Because you're witty and you're funny. Someone should share that with you. So how do you do that without the old way?
That's a really great question, because that's a question that can really help people pull out of their situation. So even through that whole time, I was still working out and I was still doing bodybuilding shows and stuff like that. And then after my surgery, like, my knee was never the same. I couldn't squat anymore. I hardly had any range of motion. It was really tough. And just randomly, a guy in the gym there, he was talking about his shoulder and how he has surgeries and he can't do stuff with his shoulder anymore. And we're like, well, maybe we should try this yoga thing out, right? You know, maybe we can get a little bit more flexible or whatever. So we messaged one of the girls in town here who owns a studio, and we're like, hey, we got a couple of guys that we want to do like a private class with, because we don't want to come to a class. So we want to call it active stretching. We don't want to call it yoga. We don't want any of the yoga crap. And we just want to do like stretching once a month or once a week. Can you do that? She's like, sure, no problem. So I met one of the most patient yoga teachers in the world dealing with us guys. And after I think about 2 years of yoga, or maybe just a year straight of going once a week, I was able to squat again and have some more full range of motion with the knee. And then I was able to actually use a lot more weight. And then about 2.5 years of doing yoga, I was like, oh, I really like this. Like, maybe I'll take my teacher training. So then I took my teacher training, and this whole time I'm still like personal training clients, right? So, so then I was like, okay, well, I've never taught yoga. I just want to use it with my clients who come in and have problems and can't squat, deadlift, or do stuff with their joints. And then, I don't know, I guess just I do connect with people really well. And personal training took off for me, that business. Like, my schedule was always pretty full. And then 3 years ago, I decided to open up my own studio, and just being completely busy with personal training. And I have many clients who come 5 days a week. You create that friendship and the bond, and a lot of clients become friends. And I think that was an outlet for me where if I worked as a personal trainer, I got to see people. So I'm not at home doing nothing, being depressed, wallowing in my own thoughts. And then those turn into friendships over time. And a few situations have come up lately in the last year or two where it's like, I really need somebody, and I'll go message one of these people that I spend 5 days a week or more with, right? Because you have developed new friendships. And then the other thing too is when you separate yourself from it, your true friends will stick around, right? And we always have a couple of true friends, and there's several people that stuck by me the whole time. And I don't know how or what you want to call those people, but like maybe social media terms like super fans or something like that. But when it comes to friends, those people will stick by you no matter what. And those are really important. You don't realize how important that is. And one of my best friends who was with me through the whole time, through everything, and then right up until this day, like, I couldn't ask for a better friend than him. And even though I probably have about 3 of those, that's really important because they keep you sane, and it's really hard. So no matter how alone you want to feel or be when your situation changes, you still need to reach out or at least engage communication with somebody, just so we don't kill ourselves and kill our thoughts with boredom. So I think investing in myself and becoming a personal trainer, and then opening up my own studio where I have to be dependent on bringing in clients, or my studio fails and I fail and I don't have a job, really forced me to keep, getting out of the house, keep being active, keeping people engaged in my life. Because if I didn't have people engaged in my life, then I would just be back in my bed, just laying there doing nothing and not being the person I am today. So I don't know. I've always had passion in health and fitness, and basically I went back to it. The alcohol kind of drove me away. I still worked out, but not dedicated. And then that's when I hired a coach before Lane and kind of get back into things. And then that coach recommended Lane, and then that's how things got back into that. So the other decision was to hire a coach too, because if I was like, okay, if I'm going to take health and fitness seriously and compete again, I need to be accountable. And yeah, I could do everything by myself, but I'm not in the right place to make those judgments. So ever since 2013, 2012, ever since 2012, I've had a coach the whole time. So I've gone from 2012 to right now, coach the whole time to keep me accountable. And spending that money and having that communication has really kept me aligning my health goals. So yeah, I think it's multiple things, like keeping in contact with your close circle of friends, keeping busy as in finding a passion, and then being accountable. I think those are 3 of the things summed up. Those are the last 10 minutes summed up in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time. I've been asked as I've been preparing for this Maryland International pageant, and it's so different than what people think of pageantry is, because so much focus is the things that are, like, I'm just so passionate about mental health. It's become something that literally the first people I told outside of my household was typing into that Team Norton page, and you and our mutual coach's mom, just getting that kind of encouragement from someone who says, I've been where you are, or I've been where your son is, and here's my story. It really helps say I'm not alone on that side. Mm-hmm. So, on the pageant side, that's what this means so much to me. But I have some goals I want to reach. I want to look as fit as I can for that. I don't want to bring my subpar self. I want to be my best from the inside out. And I need a coach too. So I've been asked, why do I need a coach if I coach people? And I need to be accountable. I am too tempted by, there's cupcakes on the counter. My daughters are good bakers. My husband can eat anything he wants and never gains a pound. I just don't have that. So accountability for me is huge, but you're so right on. And just being busy. I could tell you, going back to my son again, just because there's so many parallels with that, is I remember he went to speak to the pastor at our church because he was thinking this was some huge, too complicated thing he was going through. And I remember our pastor saying, you got to go get busy. You need a job. You might need 2 jobs. You need something to do. Because sometimes too much free time for someone who needs some social input, is tough. But something you said that means a lot to me as a mom, because I'm pretty strong on my faith side as a Christian, and I think a lot of people of faith need to hear something that you said. You can be a person of faith and not have a bunch of stiff, rigid, or unreasonable rules that keep your children from being able to see life. It is our role to protect our kids, and that sort of thing. But I remember Josh used to say I was the strictest parent he'd ever met, but the truth was he couldn't have his girls spend the night, he couldn't be high, and he couldn't drink. So he had a lot of freedoms, but there are a lot of pretty horrible, right? But I've heard of parents that, they really want their children to live in this G-rated bubble where they're not seeing what's out there. I experienced that as a kid at times too, and when I joined the Air Force, I didn't know what to do with attention from men, because I was a kid. I didn't know that 17-year-old girls are looked at by 20, 30-something-year-old men in a different way than boys. It blows your mind when you're too sheltered. And it's good to be able to see, and I've seen with some of my kids that haven't tried to take some of the liberties my son did, that in talking to them, because we can talk so openly about what's going on, and, I might be cautiously permissive and in a movie, I've had friends that say, my kid can't see that horror movie because it's scary. I can't watch a scary movie because I'm going to have nightmares, but my 14-year-old sitting in the next room can watch a PG-13 movie, that sort of thing. But sometimes the religiosities pull away from people with that relationship that is probably what people are really going for with their faith. And it becomes more external, what I do and what I don't do, than who I am. And it is a risk. It's a big risk that I think a parent needs to see. Is it's a beautiful thing to raise your kids in faith, but they need to know what's in the world, because the world wants to eat you alive.
That's for sure.
It does. And I've watched it over and over again, where especially in my time when I joined the Air Force, how many of us were so sheltered from, those younger years, and then we go into this big adult, scary, and exciting world, and want to take it all in at once. It's like binging on life, I can't say enough how thankful I am. You're my first ever interview. I'll have a few more, but you hit closest to home for me. There's just so many parallels with things that you experienced with your family and what I went as the mom of an extraordinary young man, not too different from you,
Yeah.
Life is a beautiful and ugly thing. The ugliest part of it all is when you're struggling and you can't talk about it, or you've struggled and you're still ashamed, but you could give back from your struggle, and that's exactly what you're doing right now. So I see awesome things for you still. Your business is still new. Did you call it Broga, your yoga classes?
We called yoga Broga because we wanted to from the yoga, but yeah, so it was Broga.
So before I shut us off, tell people how they can get a hold of you if they want to work with you in Canada.
Well, thankfully we have the internet now, so people can message instantly.
Yeah.
So I think my website's up and running too right now. So betteraskriley.com is kind of the there. I think there's only one Justin Rille in Facebook land, so that's how you can find me there. Basically, all my social media is Better Ask Rille, R-I-L-L-E. So Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, my email, betteraskrille@gmail.com. So I try to keep things really simple for communication.
Yeah, we'll post a link on there for this, because if you are going to trust someone with coaching you to a nutritional goal, it's a pretty unique relationship. You have to know a little bit about what someone's going through in their life, how they're sleeping, how they're eating, if they're on medications, and all that sort of thing. After 11 years of training myself, I would always tell people, I really need to know. It's between you and me, but I need to know.
Exactly.
You've got the character and the knowledge base to be a phenomenal coach, and as young as you are, you've got a lot of time to develop that into a pretty awesome skill set. Thank you so much. I feel super blessed. Thank you. Bye, sweetheart. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, you too.
All right, bye-bye.
Goodbye.